Life Academy would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we record this podcast on.
Trigger warning for this episode, we discuss adult themes, body image, diet culture, and it contains some coarse language, so please be aware if you have little ears around.
Hello!
And welcome to Life Academy!
Life Academy. Geez, that took a while.
We had to do
sorry.
that 3 times, you guys.
Ooh.
Hello, my love.
Hello, my darling.
It's been a bit of a morning.
Oh, it's been a bit of a week.
Anyway, here we are, on-screen frenemies,
Real life besties.
ready to tackle life's lessons.
Yeah, we are here with the life lessons. How's your week been?
My week has been a bit all over the place. I traveled this week and I just can't travel the way I used to. Like, I traveled for a work trip and it just it just made me laugh because I used to tour like a different city every night and play a show. And now I can't do a day trip to Sydney without coming home absolutely wrecked. And yeah, just had some big stuff going on in the family, and yeah, it's just been one of those kind of get through it weeks for me, to be honest.
Yeah. Yep.
What about you?
Yep. Same. Absolutely. Have been just getting through it. Sickness has hit our household.
Yeah, you guys have been so sick.
Oh man, it's insane. A few weeks ago, Isla got croup and ended up in hospital, and then now she's been sick again, and the anxiety that I have when she's sick now because of it is wild. I sleep in her bed to make sure that she's breathing throughout the night, so I'm exhausted.
Oh my God, so your nervous system is
it's shot to the ground. Yeah, and then on top of all of that as well, Zach has broken his ankle.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just he was taking the dog for a walk, doing a good deed for the day, and actually the dog for a run, and he tripped on a hole in the ground and just poor thing has broken his bloody
Just
ankle.
what you needed, because you really needed to care for someone else.
Really needed, yeah. So it's definitely, it's been a week, which kind of rolls in perfectly with this episode.
Yes.
What's our life lesson this week, Dena?
I think our life lesson is going to be something, maybe we'll figure it out by the end, but I think something around the journey that mental health is. And we really have wanted to talk about this for a while. Mm-hmm. Everyone has big journeys with mental health. We have our own big experiences. I feel like mine is a very,
You've got a roller coaster ride.
A very complex ride that we could be here for 5 hours, 5 days.
I think when we talk about mental health, there's so much to discuss, so much to talk about. And this will probably have multiple episodes where we talk about our journeys and just mental health in general.
Yeah.
Because I definitely think it's a necessary conversation to have. And I think with our listeners, it can be really lovely to hear other people's stories and to connect. So guys, I definitely hope that you're listening with open ears and hearts and
minds.
And minds, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm looking forward to this conversation, but I'm very curious and interested because I'm pretty open about my mental health and the journeys I've been on with sobriety and addiction and, depression and all these kind of things. But I feel like with you, you're very, very good at compartmentalizing it and putting on a happy face and just getting on with things.
I think now I am. Mental health has been an interesting one for me. I definitely don't talk about it as openly as you do on my social channels, that's for sure. I think I don't know. It's in my mind. I've always been I don't want to bore people with my crap, and if someone can't hold space for it, I don't want to put it out there. It's just my own kind of narrative that I've created. It's not necessarily the truth.
Yeah.
So I think I always was I will keep it to myself. But I've had
I'm
my
really
own
looking
journey
I know you have, and I'm really looking forward to hearing you share and just hearing how deep you are going to go today. I'm really looking forward while I push you gently to
gently
go
just
deeper.
Poke the bear.
But the other thing I was thinking about before we sort of get started on that was just the mum work-life juggle. We are at the moment, I'm so proud of us. We are juggling so much. And I think it's something some of our listeners will be able to relate to. When you go from being you know, so active in the work-life force, and then you go into motherhood and it all gets very different and like quiet, and you never leave the house and you're in your pajamas till 5 p.m. because you haven't had a chance to have a shower. And now we've stepped back into work life and I'm in study life as well. And I'm just like, wow, this is a juggle. Like every time I think, okay, I've got a spare minute, there's like an email that pops up, or there's like messages we need to respond to, or there's things we need to get on top of. And it's been kind of amazing. I love it because I'm a hustler and I love doing it. But I've been very impressed at how you are juggling it all, because you don't have any help with Isla. Like Maya goes to daycare.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how are you doing this, girl?
I do not get a minute to myself. And do you know what? It is so, the mental load is totally getting to me.
The mental load.
How I do this? Compartmentalize, put up some walls. It's not, excuse me, this is what being sick is.
Yeah.
It's not recommended in terms of mental health, but it's the only way I'm getting through at the moment. Do you know what though? I'm very, very lucky now that we've moved back. I have my parents and Zach's parents around so much more, and they are lifesavers. But
God
even
bless the grandparents.
with that help, like they've got their own lives as well, and everyone was just away recently for 3 weeks on a holiday, like all the grandparents. So we've been doing it all by ourselves, and I am exhausted. And because I'm working, I'm mothering, and I'm also studying Pilates teacher training. So I'm not
wearing
sure.
so many hats.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I'm dressed and have makeup on today.
Do you ever have days where you just like shut down and you can't? Or no?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And on those days, I chuck the TV on and it's like let's watch George Monkey. It's called Curious George, but Isla loves it and she calls it George Monkey.
George Monkey.
So I chuck that on, and then the next thing will be Shrek, and the next thing will be Wiggles. Like she's got the TV and she has to look at the TV all day, because if I can't, I get so overwhelmed.
Yes.
Mentally.
No, I relate to that. I have to have every now and again like a destimulation day where I have to just like be in my room with earplugs and an eye mask and like actually like take away all the stimulus, because I just get so overwhelmed, overtouched, definitely like the mental load gets to me. Yeah. And I have to put away my phone, and I just have to like have what I call my like just like dark out days. Like, and so I was curious.
Maybe I need one of those days.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess in a way what you're doing is sort of giving yourself that reprieve where you're just sort of, you know, numbing out and being there.
It's those days though that I do find I'll try and do like emails on my phone.
Yeah,
so I'm not completely. Yeah, I'm still not taking. I don't think I've had a day off since having Isla.
Yeah, I don't think you have either. I don't know how you do it. Like for me, like if I didn't have daycare, I don't know what I would do, because sometimes I just need those days where I'm like, I can't answer emails. I'm not responding to texts. I don't even really want to watch anything. I don't want to read anything. I just need to like, I think it's I don't want to. Yes, but you
it's
do.
It's the only chance I kind of get. Look, in terms of daycare as well, I want to send her to daycare, but I also, especially after this round of sickness, I'm terrified of the sickness that comes with it. And we're kind of in this position now where we're almost waiting for Isla to get asthma. The doctors have said, like, you know, keep an eye on her with sickness during winter and yada, yada. And I'm like, okay, so winter's coming up and I'm terrified. And if she goes to daycare, she's going to get all of the things and I'm not going to be able to sleep. Like, I'm going to sleep less than what I'm already sleeping.
I know. But it is, to a degree, I don't know if you agree with this, my opinion is that it's inevitable. Like, whether she gets sick now or whether she gets sick when she starts kindy, like her immune system is going to have to go through it at some point.
She already gets sick. For a kid that doesn't go to daycare, she gets sick. We've had gastro and RSV and the flu and COVID and we've had all of it.
Oh my gosh.
I think because she's outside and we go to all the parks and, you know, we see kids and there's dance classes.
You'll cope with it, like, you know,
but
you're
I
already
don't want it
coping
all
with
of the time. When I hear about kids that, you know, get so sick and they end up with pneumonia or something, that terrifies me.
Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. God bless or whatever, touch wood, we haven't had issues like that. Like she's come home with colds and sniffles, but nothing serious.
Yeah, okay.
But I know there's lots of horror stories out there.
Yeah. And I'm scared of the horror stories. You know how I'm such a good girl and I follow all the rules?
Yes.
And I'm that person that's like, you take drugs one time and you die. That's what I feel like with Isla going to daycare.
She's going to get pneumonia.
She's going to get pneumonia and it's going to be the worst thing in the world. I'm terrified. I'm always have the worst case scenario in my head. That's my mental health stuff that comes.
Is it always around health stuff?
With her going to daycare.
That's sort of like hypervigilance, anxiety. Is that?
Yeah. I've always been very worried about her getting
My sisters
sick.
are like that. They're quite neurotic around health stuff. Yeah. And they always think of the worst case scenario.
It scares me. It scares me a lot. And I'm not sure, I don't know where that kind of comes from. Like I was sick as a kid. I survived.
Yeah.
I have asthma. I think it's just the anxiety I know and the pressure that is on me, like having the mental load already and then the extra mental load of worrying so deeply about her health. It's hard to
really
navigate.
Stressful. And I think the asthma thing is really stressful. Like to know that you're like sleeping in her bed to make sure she's breathing right and not wheezing and like that is full on. The fact that you're here today looking like the goddess you are.
Makeup's a wonderful thing. I've said this before. Makeup is a really wonderful thing.
You're just smashing it, all things considered.
Like, babe, as are you.
Thank you.
I'm proud of us.
Yeah, I'm proud of us too.
Yeah.
We're juggling a lot. We're wearing a lot of hats. And I feel like people are really loving the podcast, which is so exciting and special.
So exciting.
And I feel like so connected to our listeners and our fans who have just been writing the most beautiful messages. And
isn't it so nice?
Yeah, it's really special.
I was a little bit nervous. I was like, oh, what if people, don't like it? And what if there's some people saying bad things? And there's not been a single bad thing. Everyone's loving it. Everyone's connecting it. And what I love is when people are messaging us saying, like, it feels like I'm just listening to my friends and I'm a part of the conversation. And
I know.
It's so nice.
It's really nice. I'm really grateful to be doing this with you.
Me too.
So is there anything else going on in your world or should we jump into the episode?
I reckon we should jump into the episode.
It's going to be a big one.
It is a big one. Actually, there's one other thing that's happening in my world.
Is it a poo story?
No, it's not a poo story.
For once.
It's a very small story. I'm getting this like very weird indigestion thing when I don't eat enough, like when I'm so busy that I'm not eating like 3 meals a day properly.
Alicia.
I get this crazy indigestion. I'm trying really hard. And it's like it gets to the point where it gets hard to talk sometimes. So I might be a bit clunky here because I need to keep having like
it sounds like
water.
The acidic balance in your, you know what I mean? You know, you don't eat and then the stomach gets too acidic-y and then you start getting reflux from that.
That's what's happening.
Oh, girl, you got to take care of yourself.
I'm definitely trying. I think now that all of the grandparents are back, there's going to be some more time and I can do some meal prepping and I can make sure that I'm not just eating Isla's leftovers.
Her little belly's leftovers.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, where should we start? I mean, I could talk about mental health for days on end. Not only has it been a huge part of my life and journey.
Yeah, let's start with your story for sure. I think
we might be here for days. I feel like we should start with yours. But I was just going to say, like, not only has it been a huge part of my story, I'm also now studying it. So it's like very much my life at the moment. And I could just talk about this stuff forever. Like whenever I talk to people, meet new people, somehow it ends up on the topic of mental health because it's just where my radar is. I'm so interested in wellness and in this stuff. So yes, I'm happy to start, but I think you should start.
I don't even know where to start.
Well, the question I was asking myself is when did like problems or issues start arising in my life that I realized I had to start becoming aware of mental health? Like when, because for me, like growing up, I didn't have problems as a child or anything. And it was only when I started getting my periods around 14, 15 is when things started to ramp up for me. So do you remember a time in your life when it first started?
I think in terms of the effects of it, I was into my 20s when I started to realize the things that I experienced as a teenager were affecting me. So with the school that I went to, the pressure I think that I had on me I worked my ass off and it didn't really get me anywhere, and I ended up...
Is this at your normal school or the dance school?
This is the dance school. So this is VCAS. And from, like, I think it was a pressure that I kind of loved, but because I wasn't getting the results that you usually get from putting in that much work, I think that started to really affect me, but not noticeably as a teenager, because there was, you know, you're a teenager, there's so much stuff going on. So just the rejection that I kept kind of getting as a young performer. And then once I finished, I think, Dance Academy, that's when things for me probably started to like open up in terms of me realizing where my mental health was at, because I started receiving rejections work-wise again.
Yes.
And that, I've touched on this topic before. When I went to LA, I just felt like I got belt down into the ground.
Yeah, you said soul destroyed last
time. Yeah, going back and forth to LA for so many years and thinking going into it you're going to have all of the success in the world, and being told by everybody you're going to have all of this success in the world, and then that not happening, it absolutely started to affect me. And I was in bed for days on end just watching TV series. I think at one point I was binging Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Just you know, and not really, and at this point still I wasn't really taking much note. I just knew that I was really sad.
You are unhappy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was doing these acting classes in LA at Howard Fine Studios, and he's a brilliant teacher and he sees things in people. And he said to me, I did a scene and he does this thing where he asks what worked, what didn't, and why. And I said, not much worked. And he said, I'm going to stop you right there. He goes, there was a lot that worked. And he goes, and you are on the precipice of being very hard to teach. He said, there's two people that are really hard to teach, and that they're the ones who think that they're amazing and that they can do no wrong. And they're the ones who think that they can do no right and everything sucks. And he
That's
goes,
so you, the second one.
Yeah. And he said, someone somewhere in your life has told you that you are not good enough, and that is not the truth.
And you're like, yeah, every fucking audition I do, mate.
And I was like, and so that's sparked something in me, and I was trying to figure out like where all of that stemmed from, where all of that started. And there was so many different things in my life that I have felt rejected from, and I kind of found my moment and just swam through the rivers of all the different things that I experienced growing up. And I was like, wow, okay, so this is how I've created that narrative in my life.
And I think like when we identify so much with what we do and also what we look like, because that just is the nature of the industry we're in, it's really challenging, because all of a sudden when you're not getting the roles and you're not getting jobs, your whole identity and value and worth as a human being is starting to be questioned. And I think actors, dancers, like performers, we do become incredibly identified with our jobs and our work. They're not two separate things. You know, I look at my partner, Alex, he's who he is, Alex, and then he's got his job. And like they're two separate things. One doesn't make the other one of more value. But I think for us, like when we are so identified with those roles of being a performer, of being beautiful, of being a star, of being this, and then that starts to get rejected, well, that is affecting our self-worth and our self-value. It's not just, oh, damn, work's a bit shit at the moment, you know?
Yeah. It's one of those things. I have always loved performing, just like you, and you have success with it, and not that I think it. How do I want to word this? It becomes who you are in a positive way, because you're succeeding in the things that you love, and then you start to build a narrative that it's like, this is what I'm meant to do, this is what I'm here for. And then when that's questioned, the effect that it was having on me in my brain of just like,
who am I?
Who am I?
Yeah.
Because I also there's a thing in Australia that we call tall poppy syndrome. I always grew up, I never wanted anyone to think that I was like stuck up or thought I was pretty or thought anything. So there was this whole narrative that I created in my head that, well, I'm not that pretty and I'm not talented. Like,
God forbid you believe in yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. It was such a strange thing going to America and meeting all these people who were like, hell yeah, like I'm amazing at this and I'm so good at that. And I was like, whoa, you're stuck up.
I remember my first day at Alvin Ailey, one of the teachers said to our whole class, so who's the best dancer in this class? And everyone put up their hand except for me. And I was like, this is the most American thing ever. Yeah. And I was like,
I guess.
Too. But I was like, just couldn't relate because for us, that would be seen as arrogance. But
Absolutely.
for them, it's just confidence.
It's confidence, yeah. And so I quickly learned, I was like, oh, no, they can say that because they are good at that. And it's taken me a very, very long time to be able to actually think that, oh, I am good at this, I am good at that. I still have this narrative in my head that I'm not good at anything else apart from performing.
Alicia.
Apart from now, I know that I'm a good mum.
You are such an amazing mum and you are an incredible friend. Like, you are one of the most caring, considerate friends. You are just always there for people when they need them. Like, when your compassion and you're like, I don't know how you can not even know all these amazing things about yourself.
That's so sweet.
And you're so smart and intelligent and you're resilient. Like, you've been through so much and you just sort of get on with everything with like a smile on your face and being kind to everyone.
It's very nice to hear that. Again, though, it's really interesting hearing those things because even in my head now, I'm like,
could do better.
Not that true. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think we all grow up with things like that. And as I said, especially in Australia with this tall poppy thing, you make sure that no one thinks you're arrogant. I also think that's quite a female thing as well. I've definitely met
keeping yourself small.
Yeah, I've met a lot of men in Australia who have all of the confidence in the world, but a lot of women who do that thing. They don't want to be seen as arrogant. They don't want to be seen as, powerful or whatever because that's societally, you're a bitch or like you're annoying or you're too loud or you're this or that. It's... Yeah, so I think in terms of all of that stuff, mental health wise, that all played a huge role in where I got to with laying in bed all day. And I honestly would not get out of bed.
Yes.
Apart from like get up, go maybe have a shower, like maybe grab something to eat. Well, actually at those points I definitely was still eating properly. And it was very, very hard. I always found when I got back from living in America, I'd have like 2 weeks where I would just cry every single day. I don't know if it was like an energetic thing, but as soon as I got home, I would be
like
even more sad than what I was in LA. It's almost like I didn't realize how sad I was over there.
And then you get home and it feels safe and you can let go.
So it was always very odd and I never really figured it out. But I think it was that thing of getting home to my safety. But even when I would get back home, all I would do would stay in bed and watch shows on my laptop.
And did you ever think like, oh, this is depression or I'm suffering with depression? Or did you just think it was circumstantial? Like, this is because I'm not getting work?
I think for me, I did think it was like a depression thing, but it was a circumstantial depression because I also found that if I got an audition, I'd perk up.
You'd perk up, yeah.
I'd feel a bit better. And then I would always kind of worry, oh, if this doesn't go through. Like I remember getting so close to a role on Home and Away and I was like, I'm 100% getting this role. Like I absolutely believed I was getting this role and I didn't. And the devastation of not getting that, I was like, I can never audition for Home and Away again.
Because you just needed something
I
to
needed
like
something. It
to
was
pull you out of it.
So it was very the depths of the pain I think that I felt. It's really interesting because I always think pain is relative as well. Because I think about some people, I remember sitting there being like, you've got an amazing life, Alicia. Like, what are you sitting here for? Well, like, why are you being so sad and depressed. Like, get over it, kind of thing. And
I hate how we do this to ourselves, and we all do it. It's like there's children starving in Africa. There's, you know, there's all this, there's war going all over. Like a dear friend of mine who's going through some postnatal depression at the moment. She's like, I've got a perfect husband and a healthy child and a house, and like I shouldn't be feeling this way, and all these things are going on in the world and I'm safe. And I'm like, and you're feeling depressed.
yeah.
And you know, like just because this comparison of like I'm not worthy of feeling what I feel because my life is like perfect and I should be grateful, and it just makes the vicious cycle so much worse, because then not only do you feel the way you feel, then you start hating yourself for feeling that way.
Yeah.
And judging yourself for feeling that way.
Big time.
Yeah.
I started to really hate myself.
Oh.
And I think it feels like such a harsh thing to say, like hate myself, but I did. Because I also, as I said, like I believed that I wasn't good at anything. I was like, I'm not smart. Like any job that I have, like I know nothing. I don't know about computers. I can't get a receptionist job. I don't know how to use Excel. Like there was nothing that I saw where I was like, I'm going to be great at that. I was like, is this what my life is? Like I'm just going to be sad and have a job that I hate. And for me, looking at my life, I was just like, all right, well, this is it, I suppose.
And did you have any support systems around you? Like I know how close you are with your mum. Like, did she know what you were going through and the depths of it? And like, were you seeing a therapist? Was there any support systems in place?
Nobody knew the depths of it.
Classic Alicia.
Classic Alicia. Nobody knew the depths of it. I think I remember thinking very clearly, like, I did not want to put that onto my parents. I didn't want them to feel any kind of pain because I was feeling any kind of pain. I mean, for sure, they could see, like, I was in bed all day, every day. Like, they knew I wasn't a happy camper.
Well, yeah.
But and because I knew that they could see that, I was like, well, I'm just going to lead with like, yeah, I'm, fine. I'm good. I'm just a bit sad.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't even think that they would know now.
How bad it was.
Yeah, how bad it was. But being a mother now as well, I definitely think Mum absolutely knew.
Yeah, she just probably didn't know really how to pull
you
out
and
of it.
Yeah, and I think she was probably too afraid to maybe open the jar
Pandora's
of worms.
box.
I don't know. Yeah, and that's like but she's always been so phenomenal at just holding space, and like if I cry, she's there and she's hugging me, and she's never pushed me to
force you to talk about
talk about things that I don't want to talk about. And I was very open about the pain I felt around not getting acting work. And I don't think at that point anyway that I could really articulate what I was feeling in terms of the build-up of rejection and self-hatred and all of those things. Like I didn't know at that point. I probably still haven't really worked through so many different feelings and emotions that I've felt through there. I'm still probably unaware of half the things that I was going through. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And I think for someone who hasn't spent their life in therapy the way I have, you do have a huge amount of self-awareness, like an insight just sort of naturally. And, I remember when you came over one of the days that I was struggling and we were chatting, and I was like, gosh, like, you've got so much self-awareness for someone who, like, usually the people who have that level of self-awareness have done a lot of work on themselves. But you seem to sort of naturally have an awareness and, like a resilience.
I think it's because what I think I've found it through acting, the self-awareness, because once again, like doing these acting classes, it was figuring out.
It's very similar to therapy acting classes, I have to say.
Because you're kind of figuring out like all these different, like what kind of situations would you have to be in to act this same way? Like playing the bad guy in quotation marks in a film or television series no one wakes up in the morning and says like, yeah, I'm evil, I'm the bad guy. Like everyone can justify their actions, right? And so, you know, if you're playing a killer in a movie or something, in what situation would you have to be in your own life to get to that point?
Yeah,
right?
no, I actually really agree that acting class and therapy could go hand in hand. I've done some acting courses where I'm like, that was the best therapy I've ever had. I did a course not so long ago with Kim Farron in Byron, and it was like a 3-day course, and I remember finishing it and driving home and like having the windows open and just being like, like I felt like I'd had like 3 days of the best therapy of my life, because we released so much emotion and we released anger and rage, and we spoke about things that were unfair and unjust that had happened to us, and there was so much vulnerability, and then there was getting into the characters' heads and psyche and all this stuff. So I actually think those acting classes probably helped you process some stuff.
Yeah, it helped me be really self-aware, and I think I've done a lot of thinking in my life. I reckon staying in bed for those kind of periods of time, I did a lot of thinking. And in terms of my self-awareness, I tried to be really logical about the things I was feeling and why I was feeling them, because it helped me feel better.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, I remember once I did go to a therapist. I had this one therapist, and it was after a toxic relationship had ended, and I kind of told her the story, and at the end I'd kind of said, you know, what I'd been doing to work through it, and I was like, but I'm still not feeling good. Like what else do I need to do? And she just sort of looked at me and she goes, yeah, well, I don't envy you.
Oh.
I was like, okay. She goes, yeah, you seem pretty self-aware, you know, you've done some work. So I'd say, yeah, probably, you know, some PTSD there. And I was like, okay, so like what are some tools you think that I could maybe have that can help me work through like some of the anger or some of the pain? And she was like,
it's your one job, lady.
And she gave me nothing. I left with basically just a diagnosis that I've got a bit of PTSD. So I was kind of like,
sprinkle of PTSD. Gosh, this is such a common story. Like the amount of times I've heard people say to me, like, I tried therapy. I tried, like, sometimes people have told me multiple times, like I've tried like 3 or 4 different therapists.
Yeah, I've not been back since.
Yeah, and a lot of people have that same experience where they don't feel like they're heard, and they also don't feel like they're given any practical tools to help them. Right. And then they give up on it, which I think is so sad, because I think therapy is
great.
The most amazing thing in the world.
Therapy in your life. At what age do you think you started therapy?
I didn't start it till my late 20s.
Yeah.
But in between my late 20s and now, I've done so much. And I was actually thinking on the drive down here, like, because of the complexity of my mental health and the sort of dual diagnosis, as they call it, because I've got like multiple diagnoses. I've had to think outside of the box often. Like often just therapy wasn't enough. So I've done things like EMDR. I'm not sure if you've heard of that.
Is that the eye movement?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So yeah, because I also have PTSD. So I've done that. Last year I did ketamine assisted psychotherapy, which was like a whole new way of doing therapy and psychotherapy and sort of figuring things out. So like I've gone to the extremes.
What does that do for you, like with the ketamine assisted? What's the difference between like a normal kind of therapy session and a ketamine assisted?
Well, one of them you're high. No, I'm joking.
Because that's something interesting to me, given that you've gone through rehab and you've had addiction.
Yes.
How did you find yourself like feeling about doing that?
I was nervous at first. I mean, I've been sober like 5 years now, so I was nervous at first to reintroduce a substance into my life. But I was at a point with my depression where I had tried pretty much everything when it came to like medications and normal types of therapy. And my therapist and I have worked really hard. I've been in and out of psychiatric hospitals. I've done my stints in rehabs. Like I've really tried everything, and the depression was still really severe. And so ketamine therapy was like, it's kind of at the forefront now of what they call treatment-resistant depression, like when people like me have tried everything and they're still not getting anywhere. So I was a little bit scared to reintroduce a drug into my life, and I didn't know if I was going to get addicted to it or like it too much. But because I was doing it in a clinical setting and like there was a lot of safeguard practices around the medicine, it made me feel safer. And all it did, like, really does for you is it gave me a respite, because it gave me a moment of like, it lifted the depression, and I was like, wow, like nature looks beautiful again and music sounds beautiful again. All the things that go away when I'm depressed, you know, like everything just turns to grey. Like I don't hear music anymore. I don't notice colours. Nothing's funny. There's no gratitude. I don't really want to be on the planet anymore. Like I get just so dark. And the ketamine sort of lifted that and like brought back a bit of joy. But then what it also did is it like opens a lot of windows, so you can put some pieces and parts together. And it also gives you some new perspective. So I was able to look at things in the past that seemed traumatic or that I felt were traumatic and like change my perspective on them and be like, oh, actually, you know, that was a learning experience, and actually that relationship had to, you know, go away for this reason, and it's okay, and I'm okay. And it just lightened things. And then the next few days after, I would have like real respite and I would feel more like myself. But I did like a 6-month program with the ketamine. So I would dose twice a week, do therapy in between, and it was done in a clinical way. So I think I think people have to be really careful with it, and it has to be done in a safe setting. Like, it's such a street drug at the moment. It's what all the kids are doing when they're partying, and I can't imagine like the dangers involved with that, because it is such a strong drug. But I think in the way I was doing it, there was a lot of safety nets put around me to make it a really good experience, and one that I would recommend for people who are having treatment-resistant depression.
Wow, that's really...
It's pretty full on.
Interesting.
It's just to give you an example of how sort of far down the end of like depression treatment I've had to go, because, you know, that really is like the newest, other than getting my brain completely like shocked, you know, getting like an ECT, I think. You know, I've done so much. I do TMS, which is like another treatment for depression, where that you've got like a magnetic thing on your head and it flicks your brain and it helps switch on different parts of the brain that have gone offline because of depression. And that's something I'm still doing actively at the moment as maintenance, because for me, like, the depression is there all the time, and it's just how I manage it. And I have to be so proactive about my management of it. Otherwise, it's sort of like this impending doom. You know, I'm like, oh, it's coming for me, and I'll have a good few weeks and then be terrified, because I'm like, oh God, that means
when's the
next episode going to come? And for me, it's very cyclic, and it's, you know, I've got a diagnosis of PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which for any women who have it out there know it's literally the biggest shit show. Like, it's so hard. Just every month you go through absolute hell before you bleed, and to manage that and all the postnatal hormones and stuff like that, I've had to be very active with my tools to keep me out of the darkness, really.
I thought I had PMDD at one point when I was living in LA. I needed to have some kind of a reason for the way that I was feeling. And
Interesting.
I remember thinking, because I'd seen you speak about it and post about it online, and I did some research into it, and I remember thinking like, oh, that aligns with me and that aligns with me. Like, I get to a certain point in my period and like all of a sudden I'm just angry and I want to like hit and scream and punch, and like I was so angry and so sad after that. And like, even while I was bleeding, I was like, it's not getting better. So it was kind of like 3 out of 4 weeks that I would be feeling like that.
Wow.
And I was like, I reckon this is PMDD. But for me, again, I think it was one of those things. It was a circumstantial.
Yeah. I think with PMDD, when you bleed, you start to feel better.
Yeah.
So that's probably the giveaway sign that you are going through something else.
Yeah.
Because with PMDD, it's very very cyclic. So you'll have, 2 weeks where you feel like yourself and you feel great. And then you start ovulating. And when you start ovulating, things start to go downhill. Yeah. And then for the second 2 weeks of the month, you feel anything from like severe rage, which a lot of women have. But, the whole dysphoria of the disease is that it's really irrational. Yeah. So for me, it's like the depression would go to like suicidal ideation straight away, just like so dark. Like I don't want to be here. I fucking hate the human experience. Like this is, and it's so extreme. And I used to call it my Jekyll and Hyde syndrome because I'd go from being Dena and then I'd ovulate and I'd be this like in this dark hole. And then the minute I would bleed, like literally as soon as I'd bleed, I'd be like, oh, I'm back. Wow. Like a light switch.
Yeah.
And it is really, I have endless empathy for women who have PMDD. It is so hard to know that every month this thing is coming for you and you have to.
Dena, I'm in awe.
Oh.
Like hearing you talk about all this kind of stuff, I'm going to cry. I'm so proud of you. I like knowing that you have to deal with this and multiple other diagnoses. It's such a, I don't really have words for it. I'm just so proud of you. And I'm really, like the resilience that you have, you said that I have resilience. And I think like I look at you and the beautiful, stunning person that you are inside and out, but just the empathy that you have, the way that you're there and the way that you show up for the people in your life as well when you're going through so much. It's fucking mind-blowing, Dena. Like, how are you doing it all?
I think, love you. Thank you. That's made me feel a lot. I think one of the superpowers of going through the darkness is that you come out with this unconditional level of compassion and empathy for other human beings. And I've been to the brinks of hell and I've been to, death's door so many times. And I've been through so many versions of being unwell mentally that there is not a bone in my body that has judgment for anyone else. Like I just have, and I think it's what will make me a great therapist one day, is like I just have endless empathy and compassion because no one chooses this. And, one of my dearest friends said to me, like, you're not guilty. Like,
no.
And he bought me a key ring that says not guilty. Because I used to like hate myself for all of this stuff. I'd be like, why can't you be, especially like the addiction stuff. Like I'd be like, why are you such a fuck up? Like, why can't you get your shit together? Why are you always missing auditions and letting shows down and doing, and like, why can't you just get it together? And then he was like, no, not guilty.
Yeah.
Not fucking guilty. You did not ask for this. No one would choose this.
Yeah.
You are getting through it. The cards you've been dealt in this lifetime haven't been that easy and you are getting through it and not guilty. And that sort of became my mantra now, is like, yeah, you know what? Like I didn't ask for any of this and it's pretty shitty, like the amount I do have to deal with, but it has given me this superpower of compassion. Like there is no one in the world I look at and can't understand, to the point where like I was talking in my therapy subject at school and we kind of went around the classroom. There's about 30 of us and everyone was talking about what they want to focus in on. And majority of them were like wanting to work with children. A lot were wanting to work with women post-natally or menopause. And I was the only one in the class that said, I want to work probably in like prison reform or in rehabs and, with addiction. And everyone looked at me like kind of like a bit shocked. And I realized like I have this ability to show compassion to anyone and everyone, perhaps even the people who really aren't shown it. And I just believe everyone deserves, even what we would consider bad people or people who've broken the law or people who've made mistakes. I believe everyone deserves to be treated like a human being at least once in their lives and listened to and understood, because as kind of full circle, coming back to the acting thing, like no one wakes up in the morning saying, I'm going to be a fucking asshole today and ruin someone's life. Like everyone is doing the best with what they got and like usually just surviving. And I think that's made me very interested in working with people who aren't shown compassion very often in this world. And that is a lot with addicts, you know, like they are judged so harshly. And the truth of the matter is like they're suffering immensely and they deserve to be shown so much compassion and empathy. And it's the only way to get through. It's the only way. Like I knew for me, like I had worked with so many different therapists. I'd seen so many different psychiatrists and doctors. And it wasn't till my therapist now who saved my life 100%. Like I was done. Like she saved my life. And it was because she made me feel understood. That was the key, was like someone really got it. Someone, like I didn't have to sit there in a doctor's office trying to explain myself, crying about, you know, the pain and suffering. I'm getting emotional now. But yeah, she just got me straight away. And like, I don't think there's anything more healing than being understood. Yeah. Being fully understood and being like, she would say to me like, I get it. Like you don't even need to explain. I 100% get it. And she does get it because she's been through her own journey of recovery and all these sort of things. And I think people with lived experience make really good therapists, counselors, social workers, helpers. And I think it's as tragically hard as some of the things I've been through are, I think it's given me such a drive to want to help people and to be of service in this lifetime, because I know that that's my calling now, because I have this like superpower of being able to hold space for anything. Yeah. That's really special.
How old do you think you were when you first noticed, like mental health wise?
I think for me, because of the PMDD, as soon as I started getting my periods, I started to notice that before my periods, I would get really emotional and really teary, and I was unable to regulate my nervous system. I wouldn't really experience rage. For me, it would get very, like suicidal ideation was a big thing. And
even at that young?
Yeah. So just very much like, you know, from white to black, you know, straight away, like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. This is too hard. There's too much suffering. There's too much pain. And I would be like sort of incapable of managing my emotions to the point where like I couldn't leave the house. And yeah, then I would bleed and then I'd be okay. And I was back at it. And so I think I started to notice that around 14 or 15, but it was all dance was my therapy, and like ballet and, you know, performing really kept me safe, and it was such an incredible therapy. And it wasn't really till I retired as a professional dancer that my mental health serious struggles started to come up. So around like 26, 27, I'd, you know, finished dance, like through Dance Academy, like I still had like PMDD and stuff, and I still suffered a bit before my periods, but I was so distracted and busy with work and dance stuff that it kept it very contained. And then it wasn't till around like 26, 27 where I'd retired from dancing, and I'd stepped more into the music industry, and my lifestyle really changed, and I was partying more, and I was such a good girl from forever till I went into the music industry, really. Yeah. And then those things really triggered the mental health stuff. Like, you know, drinking for me would be like a fun night out, and then the next day I'd be in bed for like a week. Yeah. Like the come down from, you know, going to festivals and drinking and partying was just, I would like watch everyone else get up and get on with their lives and go to the gym or whatever, and I would be like debilitated in bed with, you know, crippling anxiety and depression and panic attacks and all this sort of stuff. So I didn't really notice the severity of it till I retired from dancing, because that was therapy. Yeah. And then it really got worse in the music industry because that lifestyle is so not made for mental health.
I remember being in LA, and we had, I think it was the premiere of the Dance Academy movie. And I remember before that you had like an anxiety attack. You were shaking and you were like, you couldn't regulate at all. And yeah, I just remember that was kind of the first time that I'd seen you not like Dena
together.
not together, not like ready to roll and ready to be on a red carpet. I was like, whoa, this is different. And that was when I think, like, you know, we were kind of in our own worlds. Then you'd gotten really into the music industry at that point. And I just remember thinking, like, this is a different Dena.
Yeah, it really was. And it was so hard for me to sort of understand how I went from being like able to do anything, you know, this like teenager who moved to New York on her own, who was so capable, who could do all this stuff, to all of a sudden like not really being able to leave the house because like the panic attacks were so bad and the depression was so severe, and I would cancel gigs all the time, and I would, you know, but the thing that really, like, the PMDD is a big part of the story because that's the sort of beginning of my mental health journey. But when you saw me in LA, and like what really set things off into the trajectory of fucking despair and hell was that I'd gone on tour with Hayden James. So we were like, I was on tour with him, and we were like, he didn't have a tour bus yet. We were just in a van, and we were driving from all around America, from city to city to city to city. And I was really struggling with the long car trips and like being able to sleep in a van. And I was noticing panic attacks and really heightened levels of anxiety coming up, especially around sleep. Like when I knew like I needed to sleep and I couldn't. So I went to see, I was very naive at this point when it came to medications. Like now I'm like, you could ask me about any medication and I can tell you everything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But back then I wasn't medicated, and I was quite naive, and I went to a doctor in America, and I basically was in and out of there in 15 minutes, and they'd given me a bottle of Xanax, and they said to me, like, I'll never forget, like they just said to me, use as needed. And I was like, okay. I had no idea of the addictive nature of Xanax, and also just how much that drug can completely fuck up someone's life.
Yeah.
And so I started using it, and I was like, I remember the first time I took it, I was like, oh my God, like nirvana, like I can relax, I can sleep. This is how I'm going to tour. This is how I'm going to be able to do this and sleep at night. And then I went straight from the Hayden James tour onto the Rufus tour. And then I was living on a tour bus with like 10 men and me, and same thing, like a different show in a different city every night, then back on the tour bus, sleeping in a little coffin. It was horrible, you know?
Yeah.
And it was the same. I just kept taking the pills because they were working so well. I was sleeping and everything was fine. And then I finished touring and I came back to Australia, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be in my own bed. I'm going to be at home. I don't need, you know, I think I'd run out of Xanax, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be fine. And I started to go into withdrawals, but I didn't know what it was at the time. But I was like vomiting and hallucinating and having like extreme panic attacks where I couldn't breathe, and just having severe withdrawals. Like, you know, when you see in the movies people going through like heroin withdrawals?
Yeah.
It was like that. Like it was so severe.
How often were you having the medication?
Every night.
So just once a night?
Once a night. Yeah. I wasn't like abusing it. I wasn't using it during the day. I was just taking it once a night.
And that's the reaction that comes from it, like from just using it once a
that
night.
addictive. It's that addictive.
Having that massive of an effect on your body that you go into these intense, crazy withdrawals.
Yeah. And I remember being at my family's holiday house, and mum and dad were like, what is going on? And I was like, I don't know. And they were like, well, what do you need? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I didn't know how to explain what was going on. I was shaking. I couldn't put a sentence together. I couldn't function.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, Xanax and, you know, all the other benzos that come with it, Valium, all of them, like they really change the brain, and they change so much in the body. And when you stop them, you have to do a really slow taper because it is so much for the brain to come off these drugs. And I just stopped. You know, I just went cold turkey because I was like, I'm home, go to sleep. I'm not on tour, whatever. I can sleep now. And I just remember being like, we were out at the holiday home, and I remember saying to Mum, like, I need to go get some Xanax or Valium or something. I think that's what my body is telling me. I think I'm having like a withdrawal. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I remember calling my ex-boyfriend and being like, I think I'm addicted to these pills because I'm in withdrawals. And he was like, what are you talking about? Everyone takes them, you know, like I've got mates who've been taking them for years. Like, you were taking it for a few months. Like, there's no way you're fine. And I was like, I'm not fine. I knew I wasn't fine. Yeah. And I went to a doctor. Mum took me to the doctor, and I she was like, what have you been taking? What's changed? And I told her I've stopped the Xanax, and she was like, okay, you can't do that. Like, you can't go cold turkey off these drugs. You know, we've got to do a really slow taper. And they put me on Valium, which was, you know, it's not as strong as Xanax. So it was like a step down, but it helped me get through some of these withdrawal processes. But this nightmare of benzodiazepines, which is the class of drugs, you know, this nightmare of becoming this accidental addict and being so naive and not knowing anything about addiction. I used to think addiction was like people who wanted to get high and like choose to shoot up heroin. It's like, no, addiction's not a choice. Like, it's something that happened. And, you know, I was prescribed something really irresponsibly. I got addicted to it. And then I spent years of my life, trying to get off it safely. And it just led to, like, it's just a horror show. We would probably need a whole episode to really go into the depths of that.
I think we will do a whole episode on that, because it's also very interesting, and I feel like a very important conversation to have, because, I mean, I'm unaware of, I'm, you know, just as naive as you probably were when you went to the doctor and were like, oh, I need something to help me sleep. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know any of this stuff. So this is kind of all news to me. It's very interesting to hear, and I think a very important conversation to be made aware of about just addiction in general. It's, as you said, it's like accidental addiction. This is something that again, like, you came home, you were just like, I'm good. I don't need these. And
and my body, I had a full chemical dependency, you know, a full-blown chemical dependency. And then you know, with my parents, they were like, we don't know what to do. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And that was the point where I was like, I need to go to rehab, you know. I need to go get off this shit. And I just so desperately wanted to be off it. Like, there is nothing worse.
And you didn't think you could do that without rehab, or had you tried to do it without rehab?
I didn't think I could do it without rehab, like without support. It was so terrifying, and the withdrawals were so severe. I was like, I need to be medically watched. Yeah, I need it. Like, this needs to be done. And unfortunately, the rehab I went to was not the right place to go to, and they pulled me off it way too quickly, and it was kind of like the same thing again. And I didn't sleep for like 8 months, and I ended up in psychiatric hospitals because I'd gone totally insane, because literally, like, my brain was like being tortured. And so now, you know, years and years later, like, what I know about benzos and what, you know, I hope people out there can know is, like, prescription medication in general, like, it is so addictive, and you have to be so careful. And coming off it is very different to quitting alcohol or coming off meth or stopping cocaine use. You know, these addictions, often they can, like, in 2 weeks at a rehab, you stop them and then you do the whole rehab process. But prescription medication, like benzos, and they're kind of in a league of their own, sometimes it can take you like 3 years to get off these things, and you're coming down by like a milligram every 2 months because the change on your brain and your body is so severe. So anyway, there's like, it's a long and challenging road that I've been on with benzos, and I think a lot of people know about the opioid crisis in America, but they don't know as much about the benzo crisis. And it's just as bad, if not worse. You know, kids are like popping Xanax at parties, and everyone, you know, I remember in LA, people people, the Valley girls, like everyone's taking Valium because they're all like preparing for their auditions and freaking out. And people just do not realize the addictive nature of these drugs. And I was like, you know, in terms of the music industry and like the partying, I was a pretty good girl. Like I wasn't out there drinking and doing coke every night. And yet I ended up in rehab, you know, from something a doctor prescribed me. I was like leaving the parties first. I just wanted to sleep.
Yeah.
So I think just having that awareness is something I'll always talk about, because I would not wish what I went through on anyone. And, you know, what I still go through, I still live with withdrawal syndrome. You know, I still have symptoms that leave me incredibly uncomfortable. I still struggle. It fucked up my sleep. Like I struggle so much still with sleep. I'm still on a lot of medication for things. Like, so it's still a journey I'm on, but at least like that horrific part of it, of not understanding or knowing, you know, that's over.
Yeah. This has been a very eye-opening episode, I think. And I also believe, I mean, I don't think I even really scratched the surface of my own story. It's hard for me to open up about my mental health, and I think hearing your story has made me feel like, oh gosh, I could definitely go deeper into what I've experienced. So I'm really, really grateful that you're so open and willing to tell everyone your story.
Yeah, I think the more we can take away the stigma and the shame around this stuff, the better. And the more that young adults can see people like us who they've looked up to going, oh, they've been through some real shit with their mental health, and it's not all smoke and mirrors. And the more we can all just be vulnerable and real with each other, the better this universe is going to be. Like, we're just, you know, we're just a bunch of wounded humans walking each other home, you know?
We are. So I think in saying that, maybe to our listeners, if you guys have questions, we definitely will do another mental health episode.
Yes, definitely.
If you guys have questions, if you guys want us to touch on anything in particular, especially within a mental health episode,
yes,
I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and what you want to hear from us.
I think we can really go into, you know, we haven't spoken about today anxiety, and I think we've both had our stories with that. I think we can go talk a lot about disordered eating and, you know, the things we've gone through with our bodies. We did that a little bit in the body image episode, but I think there's so much. As I said to you at the start of this episode, I could talk about this stuff for days, and my story is so complex and there's so much in it. So I think we'll do some follow-up episodes, but definitely keen to hear what our listeners want to hear about or what they're possibly going through themselves.
Yeah.
I get a ton of messages about women going through PMDD and asking me for advice and like not knowing what to do. So we can definitely talk about that more as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And on that note, let's have a quick talk about what our homework/dream work is.
Beautiful. Well, let's consider this episode part 1.
Yes.
And we'll come back to part 2.
I think that's good.
My homework for this week, my dream work, is actually a TV series I just finished watching, and it is the best series I've watched in a really long time. I know I said that after Adolescence.
I was going to say, we've heard this, Dena.
I know, but this actually may be topped Adolescence for me.
What?
It is incredible. It's called Bad Boy. It's on Netflix.
I haven't even heard of this.
It's an Israeli series, but it got like hyped up on Netflix. Like it was their like, you know, the main screen thing. So I watched it. The performances are next level. Israelis know how to make television because they're so edgy and they're so, it's really raw. Like they're very like HBO vibes. Like we will go there.
Yeah.
The acting performances are like
brilliant.
I've never seen anything like it. I actually messaged Tom Green and I was like, you need to watch Bad Boy because it's something I could see him in that kind of gritty. It's about a kid that ends up in juvenile prison and in Israel and what goes on in there, and it's
hectic.
It's hectic but phenomenal.
Wow.
And also it's like a bit of a comedy, so it's like a dramedy,
dark comedy, maybe?
Dark comedy, yeah. It's really, really good.
Cool.
So that's my rec.
All right, into that. I wanted to give a bit of a shout out to a girlfriend of mine, Dominique Elisa, who has got a beautiful podcast herself, and she's got these self-love journals.
Amazing.
Self-Dom is her Instagram page, and her journals are like a what are they?
Well, they've got, like, I've seen them. They've got gratitude in there.
Oh yeah, so her journals are a gratitude journal, and she gives you prompts in there, and it's the most beautiful journal. I am someone, I think when it comes to journaling for me, I'm always like, what do I write? Like, what am I grateful for? I kind of get in my head a bit too much with it all. So I think something like this can really help, and it's a really beautiful start to, I guess, being a little bit more mindful and a little bit more self-aware about what you're feeling and what you're going through. So yeah, that's my recommendation.
Journaling has been a huge part of my healing journey.
Nice.
And I can't recommend it enough. And I love journals that give you prompts, like, what am I grateful for? What's something small I can do today? An affirmation or something I'm ready to let go of. So I love her journals as well. So I think that's an incredible rec. And
beautiful.
For anyone out there who is maybe going through a hard time at the moment, journaling is your best friend.
Get it journaling
out of the head,
homework.
Onto the page.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great homework.
Yeah, thanks.
I love you so much.
I'm so proud of you, and I'm
so proud of
so
you.
impressed by your strength and resilience, and just how wonderful you are of a human being.
I love
Love you
so
lots.
much.
I think the bell is about to ring.
Class is dismissed. Love you guys.
Love you guys. Mwah.
Mwah.